In our previous podcast, we spoke with Dr Chandra Iyer about increasing the success of legume crops using inoculants. This is important as more growers incorporate multi-species cover crops into their fallow and even intercrop. Catalyst grower Denis Pozzebon planted a cover crop in 2019 to improve soil health and address parasitic nematodes, but he's been doing trials for more than 10 years with Project Catalyst.
Well, back then it was more to do with fertilising, nutrient management and chemical management, and I was, like I said, heavily involved with PA and just using my PA skills and using towards nutrient management was the better of it, and placement of nutrients in the right zones, and then the chemical, well, that followed with using PA as well, and then became legumes, soil health, again nutrients with all the regulations. Back then it was just starting, and today it's the better of PA to manage our nutrients and chemical in the right zones.
How do you think that you've benefited from broadly adopting some of the trials you've practiced here from Project Catalyst?
Well, just the actual improvement of chemicals and nutrients, and you sort of applying the right amount of nutrients that are required.
Financial benefit,
financial benefit, soil benefit, yes, environmental benefit. And then now the next step is to go into the mixed species, and that's another benefit that I can sort of see just for more soil health. It was probably a Catalyst conference, Simon Madison, sort of kicked it off a little bit, and then my good old mate Razor Moore up in Tully there, him and his big long tillage radish, inspired me even a bit more.
Him and his mycorrhizal fungi.
That's it.
He loves it, doesn't he?
He does. And and then we sort of managed to go to, I think it was Ingham, and they had a regen conference up there, and I seen it actually out in the paddock, and that inspired me a little bit more, and then I said, no, I've got to give this a go. And we'd done a project last year through Catalyst, mixed species project. Whether or not, I'm only new at all this, whether or not it unlocks nutrients, whether or not it helps with nematodes, whether or not it's just a soil health benefit. Yeah, so it's a new thing for me.
Well, let's go and have a look at it.
Done. As you can see, these were replicated trials which was organised by Mika. Yep. Across the whole paddock, 6 rows replicated over 3.
Yeah, so we had it was 5 treatments and 3 replicates.
Yeah. And until we harvest, there's probably no way that we'll be able to tell the difference.
Yep. And
to see what yield there is, if there is any difference in yield.
Yes.
So this was sandy loam we're looking at here.
Very sandy.
Blocking the Burdekin.
So what are you hoping to remedy out of these types of trials with soil health improvement?
Essentially, well, Denis came to us and said he wanted to improve soil health, and his main one of his main things that he was looking at was nematode population. So thought there was large nematode numbers, parasitic nematode levels in the soil. So we put in various treatments to look at various different things. So we wanted to try and improve biomass. So that was one of our treatments. So try and get as much organic matter in the soil as we could, so we could try and build that profile a little bit. And then we had a legume treatment where we were trying to put in as much nitrogen into the soil as we possibly could, trying to fix as much as we could. And then we had a soil health treatment as well. So that was the one where we were trying to break compaction layers, we were trying to improve those beneficial nematode numbers and everything like that. So trying to reduce our parasitic nematode numbers and increase our beneficial numbers. So just trying to improve the overall bacterial health of the soil, the microbial health. So, and nematodes fall in that as well. So
what are you hoping to see in the cane harvesting when you take it out? I mean, are we looking at yield improvement? Like, what types of benefits are there to these types of applications apart from nitrogen reduction?
So I think the main thing we're going to be start seeing, hopefully, we're going to see improved infiltration with water application, because we're going to be improving that soil health, so the soil's going to be able to hold on to moisture longer, it's going to be able to use moisture a lot better as well. But it's really difficult over a three-month fallow crop to try and see these changes, so I think this type of change is going to be something that's going to happen over 10 years. It's not something they're going to be able to measure over 3 months, so it's going to be a really long-term thing, trying to just maintain all that goodness in the soil, essentially.
So where else are you seeing these types of applications in the Burdekin across various soil types or even varieties of cane?
Pretty limited, to be honest, with mixed fallow. So Denis has kind of been pushing it a fair bit. So he's maybe a few other growers, maybe 3 or 4 that I know of that are
very limited.
Yeah, very limited, that are actually trying in the Burdekin. Yep. So it's one of those things where you can have a fallow crop that you can make money off, and it's kind of hard to see past that a little bit. Like if you can make money in the short term, it might not be beneficial to put in a mixed species fallow, where in the long term, that's where you might see your improvements and things like that. So at the moment, it's very new in the Burdekin.
And that's the point. It's like Mika said, if growers need or want to do another cash crop in their fallow, that's fine, because it's another cash crop for them. But I've chosen just to do it as another legume crop, and as another just for soil health. It was Graze Science, one of Graze Science conferences. It was a 3-day short course. It was turned into 1 day that I went to, and that really inspired me immensely to try all these mixed species. And it was just little things that we've learnt even by going to that, and I think Mika was there that day. Yep. And where it just sort of cleared up a lot of questions. It's just not throwing a bunch of seeds together. It's making sure that you've got the 5 different type of species, grasses in your, the whole different 5 species.
This is where you
but then that was it. And just by going to that course, and then listen to Graham again at the conference in Mackay, at the Catalyst 2020. That was just mind-boggling to me, and I know a lot of growers got inspired by listening to Graham again that night.
What happens once you plant that? Does it just die back and then go back into the soil?
This was bed formed and pre-irrigated, and then planted on with the mixed species crop. So when time came, we virtually just mulched it, and I wavy coulted, and I planted straight on top of it. So everything was left here.
Wow.
And we really can't see it, but there are still signs of stalks of sorghum and millet that was still, we did have a couple of issues with volunteer sorghum coming up, and but that was, hopefully we've eliminated that.
Seed, obviously.
Well, it's not supposed to seed, but it did.
Yep.
And that was one of that was the trial. That was one of the mistakes that we actually learnt from.
That's great.
Learning, One day you want the crop in there, you want all these mixed species, and the next day it becomes a weed, essentially. So one of the things that you definitely need to point out is management post fallow crop, because the crop will keep, or the mixed species will keep coming up, and that's not ideal for cane. So it's definitely a management thing that we
that's
been
right.
dealing with, haven't we? So
and it was a simple solution. I just had to walk the paddocks 3 times.
So
just to pick the seeds.
Step us through how you monitor a trial like this.
We did really rigorous testing for this trial. It wasn't, we didn't get as good a baseline data as we wanted to, just because we would have loved to have sampled right at the end of the previous cane crop, so we could get a proper baseline nematode reading, but that didn't happen. So pretty well, so we did full nematode testing across the entire block, so that's basically 15 samples every single few months. So far we've done 3 sampling events so far, so done full suite of soil analysis. We've also done Solvita burst testing, which is basically testing for microbial respiration. So you set up a little jar, and then you wet the soil, and then you basically measure how much CO2 is emitted from that tiny little bit of soil, and that gives you an idea of how much bacteria is in the soil and things like that. So we're hoping to see increases in that as well. So also did some compaction tests and things like that. We did nitrate strip testing, extremely rigorous testing that we did. So I think I've taken probably over about 100 soil samples out of this block so far. So,
But it needs to be, doesn't it, to
Yeah,
scientifically
exactly,
quantify
yeah.
what you're doing here?
Yeah.
That's right. And like Mika said, for me, I believe I will get a benefit out of this next year. Not so much this year. I can see just in the cane health and the actual soil health that I can actually see now that it is improving.
It's holding water really well.
It's good. It's retaining its moisture for longer, and this is a very sandy soil.
It is really important to make sure we do monitor and measure all this stuff, because we can come out and say all these great things are going on, but if we don't actually measure it, then we don't know that it's actually happening. So I think, continuing the measuring that we're doing, so all the sampling that we're doing, into the cane crop as well. So it's all well and good to have all these fantastic changes right at the end of the mixed fallow, but if that's not carried through until your fourth ratoon, or even to your first ratoon, then that's where you make all your money. And if people are going to consider putting in mixed species fallows, that you need to find out what the problem you're trying to fix is, and it's not just a be all and end all, you're going to fix all your problems. We had several different treatments looking at several different things, and if you figure out you've got a limiting factor and you're trying to improve that, then develop your species mix to that. Don't just put in everything that you think you should put in.
When harvested, trial results indicated increased bacterial respiration, an overall decrease in parasitic nematodes, whilst allowing Denis to determine which fallow strategy is most easily managed in the cane rotation. David Russell is new to the cane industry and keen to improve the land he farms by incorporating biodiversity within the rows of his cane.
I did a trial on this farm with nitrogen runoff a couple of years ago, and nobody wants nitrogen runoff. I mean, we don't buy a fertiliser to run it out of the reef and be a bad person. So if we can up our nitrogen and our soil health by doing it naturally, my wife and I, we think that's the way we should do it.
Dave, I think he was growing a bit of soybeans and he was already sort of getting into that fallow cropping stage. This project that we're looking at in particular is looking at actually intercropping the soys and radishes into the cane. So that was just something that Dave thought might be interesting, and we're thinking we might as well have a crack and see if it worked out. Just something a little bit different. We cover off on about 4 hectares or so. So it's only a small area, but we're looking at increasing soil health, soil biology, just getting a bit more into the system. Hopefully that may have a positive impact on the cane.
I dropped the fertiliser rate down on this area by about 80 kilos a hectare, and so hopefully this companion planting will put a bit back in with the radish and the soys.
Soys, because Dave's already sort of working in that area, so something that he's familiar with, something that we can work with. And radishes, there's a couple of people working in the area trialling radishes as well. They can access some nutrients at depths, so hopefully they can bring that up for the cane. So it's just to try and implement an intercropping system that actually fits in with the cane and that can provide some sort of benefit for it as well. We had to order seed, we had to order inoculant, all that sort of stuff. So setting up the very basics, calibration of the seed as well, making sure that we had enough. There were a couple of trips there back and forth. Close to a full day of trying to make sure everything was right and trying to replicate it as well, just to make sure that we had, there was a mix of soys and radish, soys and then just radish by itself. So we've got a combination of these different replicates across the block.
A second-generation grower, Gino Zatta is focused on soil improvement and cover through the wettest part of the year. Farming a total area of 600 hectares, broader adoption of technology combined with trialled practices is delivering results.
Well, this is our legume precision planter, which is going to be out there working shortly, and we're into soybeans, just your cowpeas, and we are going to trial some sunflower this year in conjunction with the soybeans, and it's probably one of our best assets we got. We get virtually 99% germination with this way. The old way we used to do it was just scatter them out there with a spreader and just harrow the legumes in. This way we can actually get everyone to germinate. We want to put soys and sunflowers together just to have a a bit of a variety in the paddock just to see, but we mainly want a cover, ground cover, because we are in a flood plains here. So if we can get our good legume crop in, that holds all our soils for the wet season. Just a fallow crop. We don't harvest our legumes. We mainly just put them back into the soil as organic matter.
So how long do you keep your fallow crop?
It varies on. We normally tend to just before they go to seed. So it could be between 90 to 100 days, and we'll spray them out. And with a minimum of working prior to planting, then we'll go into, we're looking at now maybe just going straight in with a disc opener, but it's all time. Soils have got to be perfect. Germination, if you fail the germination, you've got to wear that for a few years.
So from your baseline soil testing, what were your soils like before you commenced this work?
These soils have been farmed for quite a few years now, and we noticed like the newer grounds where we brought into production maybe 15, 20 years ago, they're a little bit better than the old original stuff. So we need to be mindful of trying to get some organic matter back. Like all our trash blankets are all put back into the soil again. We try not to burn our trash blankets unless we have to get a laser scoop in to do some paddock touch-ups or some drainage issues. Otherwise, all our green matter's worked back into the soil. So the variety here wasn't really recommended for our area. This is a 252, and yet this is fourth return now, and we're happy with it. It's due for a spray, so this looks a bit untidy at the moment. But yeah, we're happy with it, giving us good sugars and good tons. And across the road here, we've got another block where we're going to, this is where we want to do the trial. We're going to put some sun hemp, sunflowers, soyas in conjunction with the cedar.
So when you're putting so much organic matter back into the soil, have you noticed an improvement in water retention or the way the soil's structured?
What we have noticed is that the following year when we go to prep our soils for planting, they're a lot more friable. And if you happen to dig down with a nice, with a shovelful dirt comes out, we'll see earthworms, we'll see plenty of movement in the soil.
Oh, I think we need a shovel. We'll have to have a look at that, I think.
You'll have to come back in about April, May next year. This is a creek bank soils. It's probably one of the better soils on our farms. As we move further, like across the road, as we get into the heavier clays, where a lot of attention has to be like in the soil prep. Like this soil here, you can get that ready very quickly. That one needs a little bit more timing. But we've noticed being on mounds, they tend to dry out a bit sooner, and we can get on our grounds a bit better, and the ground's a lot more friable.
What are you hoping to achieve long term?
Sustainable farming. We need to be here for quite a few more years yet, and the reef's on our back doorstep, and we need to look after that. All our river systems here, most of our farm goes into small tailings dams or sediment ponds, which we then either irrigate back onto the cane, or we let that water just overflows out. So we've set up quite a few of these around the farm.
What role has Project Catalyst played in some of your innovations and trials?
It's given me an opportunity to see what other people are doing in other parts of the district, because we were sort of just focused on Ingham and Ingham only. It's better to look outside and you can adapt some of them ideas into our practices. Well, I noticed the Mackay guys seem to be probably a little bit similar to us, soil conditions and way of farming, so we've sort of followed them guys down there a little bit. The Burdekin's, they're right into irrigation, and that's sort of out of our league. We do a little bit of watering here, supplementary watering, maybe just if we can try and get over the farm once, that's all we do, just to establish the return crop, and then the wet season looks after itself. To look at a farm, like we just bought one last year, a rundown farm up the road, and we don't like farms not up to our specs, so we've just poured a lot of time into that, and to get it up to scratch. But now we're happy to, we probably would have doubled the tons in it at the moment. It was fairly run down, but I meant it's a pleasure now to drive around, and people have actually come out and wanted to have a look at what we've done, how we've turned the place around.
So what are some of the benefits you've seen, economically speaking or productivity wise, out of the trials that you've run and adopted more broadly across farm?
Well, we want to get as highest productivity as we can. Look, we're governed by the weather, and what we have noticed is our chemical side of it is come down. Like you grow a better crop, better trash blanket, it all helps you in the long term.
Project Catalyst is funded by the partnership between the Australian Government's Reef Trust and the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, in conjunction with the Coca-Cola Foundation and with support from WWF Australia.